Hi, welcome to the Career Corner. My name is Heather Swift, and I'm delighted to be your host. The purpose of the Career Corner is to help people move from career distress to career success. Today, my guest is Adrienne Fretz. She is a partner with OnPoint HR. Today, we'll be discussing recruiting, how to manage your online brand, and many other helpful career tips. Adrienne, welcome to the Career Corner.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So I know you from your past life.
Absolutely.
For many years. I would love to hear about how OnPoint came to be.
It's a long time in the making, actually. My partner and I met about 10 years ago at Deloitte Consulting when we were both human capital consultants, and worked together there for about 5 years. Each then came into our own at Lehman Brothers, doing talent management, performance management, and development roles internally. And then during the downturn, Josh decided it was time to go out on his own and do something formally that he'd always been doing informally. And that was helping people to connect with roles and to find fulfillment in their careers.
Is that possible?
It is possible, at least for short stints. No, but it is possible for sure. And so on and off, we've been talking through the years, and so the business is now about 3.5 years old. And I think now's the time, having been a consultant, having then worked internally, and now to come back out and have a broader view, but also to help people at a more personal level in talent management. As a consultant and in my previous role, it was more programmatic.
Yes.
Inside the organization, thinking about broader programs, and so now I get to work with individuals and help them at a different way.
So how is that switch? Because I've seen your magic in the making of you helping with big paradigm shifts and how organizations are looking at their people and their talent, and instead of just being a manager, being a coach of your people and of your own career. So how do you like having more intimate one-on-one as opposed to just teams and trying to like move this mountain? Because I know that mountain didn't always want to move so quickly.
Didn't always want to move.
Or at all.
I think all aspects of professional life have their challenges and roadblocks, right? So there's many things that get in the way of getting somebody from point A to point B in the job search world as well. But I think what I'm enjoying so much is that one-on-one coaching, right? So where I was looking at how do you help broader, how do you help create managers as coaches, now I'm practicing what I'm preaching, right? And being that coach actually kind of the minute, right? So as a recruiter, I talk to a lot of people all day long, and I hear their stories and I listen for kind of underlying all of that. What are they really trying to achieve in their career? What are their hopes and dreams? What are the best use of their talents? And so I don't view my job as just to take that person and kind of force fit them somewhere. It's really so much more about helping them to figure out how to navigate. Is the timing right? And it doesn't serve anyone to try to push something that's not right.
Yeah.
So it's that coaching relationship, and I think, and building the trust. And there are a lot of fabulous people out there.
There really are, and I think sometimes recruiting would get a bad name because of the old school ways of just trying to get people to leave a job that they really might be okay with at a wrong time, in between moving houses, a death, a divorce, a birth of a child, or just their own milestones where they're running from their reality or whatnot. So it's nice that I think there's more consciousness now put around it, and absolutely you will help the brand of recruiting tremendously because you are. So. Oh yes, absolutely, because I think you also will bring not just your expertise and your fine pedigree to everything you've done, but also a sense of heart in really helping people feel heard, and that also builds loyalty because once you do right by somebody, there
absolutely,
it goes.
Absolutely. And I think, and that's been so wonderful to see already, that there's, people are wanting to help each other, right? And it may not be right for me, but let me tell you about my friend, or let me introduce you. And that and it's so nice to, all that pay it forward kind of thing is definitely alive and well in this business.
Absolutely. What kind of roles are you focusing on right now, or what are some hot trends and some movement that you're seeing?
So OnPoint HR focuses exclusively on the HR and human capital related roles.
Okay.
And for me, having a business background and then coming later in my career into HR, I think the HR function has so much potential to really change and move the needle in organizations. And so being able now to work with people who are those game changers and get them into those roles who really drive business change. And so I think that now is kind of looking more and more like organizations are waking up to that idea, that HR is a really valued function, that it can be a competitive advantage in the organization to have the right people in that space, and that looking at what kinds of people do well there. So I think one of the trends we're starting to see is that the most, I don't call it flexible, learning agile, the people who can really move from situation to situation. We know more than ever now that businesses don't stand still. So the kind of people who can come into a new situation, assess what's happening, come out with a way to see how they can navigate and make a difference, and do that time and time again, whether it's inside one organization or doing it in a variety of spaces. But that ability to continue to learn and grow and kind of on your feet, deal with ambiguity. So that's a big one that we're finding that skill set. And in our space, that comes oftentimes out of consulting, may also come from an HR leadership development program that many organizations are investing in and having great success with.
Now, are you finding that certain generations are better equipped with those skills you just mentioned?
You know, I mean, there's certainly the idea of, you know, that youth can keep up faster, right? You know, with the change of technology and doing all of those things, but not necessarily the case. I mean, I think
they don't have the experience too to
they
really.
They don't have, right? Yeah. So they know how to use that. They know how to make some moves and are often more comfortable with change and don't have the idea that things stay the same.
Yes. Look. My new Apple phone.
Yeah, right. But at the same time, I think for those of us who've been in business long enough, you know, the pendulum comes back, right? And so people with more experience are able to, I think, more calmly also oftentimes assess and see, okay, this is the tide that we're in right now. In a couple of years, we're going to be on the other side of this again, and being able to kind of, I think, be that mentor and guide through that change as well. So there's certainly room for everyone.
Where are you finding most of your candidates?
Really anywhere and everywhere, which is really exciting. So part of what we do too, we work across industry, and look for people in all different kinds of organizations. So we're not biased to think that all the great people are in one spot. So we're really finding people at small organizations, large organizations, across, as I said, different industries. We're finding people too who have gone out on their own and are ready to come back into industry.
Okay.
So have kind of that variety of experience that I think is finding more and more of a place where organizations understand that they're not going to get the lifer, but looking for people who have enough experience to be able to apply
and want to commit for the near future.
Exactly, and I think that's more understood than it had been in the past.
Oh, absolutely.
That this might be 2 years, and I think also for candidates where they say, okay, I don't know that I'm going to be in corporate forever, or I don't know that going into a small startup might be a little risky. But if your resume can handle it, I'll call it, right? So the idea that if you can show staying power, it's okay to have a couple of shorter stints on your resume as well, where you're saying, here's why I did it. I was trying to achieve a particular goal. I was trying to get some sort of experience in this. I wanted to see, could I apply my skills? Could I do it more independently in a smaller environment? And so being very intentional about where you're going and what you're trying to get out of it, and then bringing that back into the next environment.
Well, as you know, I just jumped ship after 10 years into RiseSmart, which has been great, and they're 6 years strong, but it's very fast, agile, very more modern approach to an old-fashioned twist of transition services. And I know leaving it, you know, I always feel like you're betraying your old company because you grow up there. Like I was there a decade. Like that was 10 years of becoming a working mom, and
they know you, right?
Yeah, family, like you know them, like people, you know, changing. And when someone was kind of mentioning, "Oh, really, you're going?" I'm like, "I've been here 10 years." I'm like, "Have you been anywhere 10 years?" And he was kind of like, "No." I said, "Well, you know, it was time." And I just had that feeling, and I guess there's my staying power. But I learned too that I am more of a nester, and as far as I want to go and get comfortable and then make relationships and just really have fun and do good work. And I think that I don't know if that's more of our generation and our younger brothers and sisters coming up the ranks are going to be like, yeah, no, 2 years is too much and 3 years is great, or what that looks like, because all I knew was it was perfect at the right time, and I also knew when it was time to leave. So I guess part of your job is to really assess where people are.
That's right.
Because, you know, a year ago, I just started getting that itch. But 9 months ago, I wasn't. You know what I mean? Like prior to that, when I knew it was time. So it's so great for you to keep staying in touch with people, because life really does change, and people are ready for new opportunities. And
that's right. Whether it's professional changes, personal changes, all of these things, right? And I think that's one of the, I guess the other sides of being in this is that when I'm speaking with people about career, there's so much more to it, right? You really need to know the whole person.
Yeah.
And I think
Totally.
that's been really enjoyable.
And also, too, when you interview someone, and I really grew up in staffing and temporary staffing, which I loved.
Yeah.
I tried the permanent placement, but it was a rough group, and I was not cut from their cloth. It was just like,
Yeah,
you know,
well, in that transactional
they're like, here,
place, right?
here, you're talking to a bunch of guys in a broker room, and I'm
Yeah.
like, so we have this new opportunity. Like, it was just so sad.
Right.
But the temporary staffing I loved, but I was
That's great.
keenly aware as I interviewed people and sent them out to work or attempt to permanent jobs that my brand was on their back.
That's right.
So, and I came to quickly realize that when someone says, oh yeah, I'll show up, and they don't, and you're like, but I just met you and the president's expecting you, and I would run out the door to go be the receptionist for the day.
Right.
I was 24. I'm like, this
I'll fill in.
is J. Walter Thompson. Someone has to go. So it was just such a wild experience, but I learned very early on in my career that, you know, you're only as good as your referral.
That's right.
And how you really have to protect your own brand. And I'd love for you to talk to that, because as you're weighing that, and I'm sure people are like, oh, my best friend Adrienne, you'll love her. And you're like, oh my God, she's a loser. Like, you have to really have a delicate dance.
That's right.
So talk to me about this dance.
About your brand. Yeah, sure. You know, and I think part of it, and I come from a place of saying, I want to hear from everybody what their value proposition is and what's unique about them and what do they really bring, right? So when I'm listening for that, that's part of me figuring out, are there some kernels of things in here that really define you and make you unique? And that starts to become the story of that person's brand. But beyond that, there's a lot of other factors that go into it. It is who's in their network, what organizations have they worked with, right? Those things do education. These speak volumes about people who they associate with, the kind of achievements that they've had. But the other pieces that are becoming more and more relevant are your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook pieces. What can people find about you when they Google you, right? Which is, Googling is now a verb, right? So you have a lot of information about people now more readily accessible. So it's not just who I'm talking to or looking at.
Hide those drunken Acapulco pictures.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and in fact, I think, you know, I've heard some little stories here and there about businesses cropping up of saying, we can help you to clean up your social profile. But
put
you know,
suits on everybody, like they just kind of draw
airbrush it. But joking aside, it is important to think about that, and particularly if you're in the job market, LinkedIn has become the place to go to kind of broadcast your interests, your background, your experiences, and to find other people who are like-minded. Recruiters are there constantly sourcing for new people, looking at who's linked with whom, and understanding patterns of people moving. So it's a tremendous movement in the industry.
Part of that.
It really is.
That's so exciting. So we're going to be taking a break in a moment, but I'd love to talk more about the importance of your online profile. How do you manage that? And just kind of what people should be aware of when going through that process.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great.
So stay tuned. We'll be back with Adrienne Fretz in a few moments.
Local government, local educational institutions, and local community members all use cable access TV to communicate their message. They depend upon it as an affordable means of outreach. Public educational and government access television empowers local government agencies, individuals, and groups to use the media to speak directly to their constituents in a more direct and cost-effective way. Make sure everyone has a voice. Support your local PEG channels.
Hi, welcome back to the Career Corner. I'm here with Adrienne Fretz, and we're talking about our online reputation, how to improve and how to land successfully. So Adrienne, I would love to ask you a few questions around this. Let's start with the resume. Fact or fiction? You know, how real do we need to be on the resume to represent what we've done? How many white lies are okay? And salary, when people ask about salary, if you place it on your resume or not. It's usually in discussion after the fact.
Absolutely.
But so in your experience, how honest do we need to be?
As honest as you can be, please.
Ouch!
Ouch! Ouch! I'm like,
I'm not 5'9" and 120 pounds.
Hopefully that's not on your resume.
Yeah, right. That's what kind of job I'm going for next. Yeah.
I think the piece is here that you want to be successful in the next place that you're going to, right? So it doesn't serve you or the process to over-exaggerate. Does that mean that we don't want to get a glimpse of the potential that you have? Absolutely not, right? We want to be able to see that you have a track record of success, that there's a lot of things that you want to achieve and all of this. That said, we want to be also clear on what did you actually do, right? And what part of this did you deliver? So the resumes that actually get the best hits and the traction are those that quantify, are those that talk about very specific things that were delivered, right? Not
so specific
necessarily
milestones and achievements.
Milestones, right? So I turned this business around and from a $5 billion business to a $10 billion business. Just to use fun numbers. But right, so those kinds of things that say implemented this for about $1.5 million of cost savings. To be able to quantify, to be able to talk about that, worked on a 3,000 person merger and acquisition, right? Pulling two organizations together. So
would you know anything about that?
I wouldn't know anything about that. The pain of it all. But those types of things that I think that become hard hitting, and then they know that they can ask about it. What was your experience in that? How did you actually do that? And that a lot of times in the interview process, you find that's really what they're looking for, the real story. And you'd be surprised, people can see through it, right? If you don't have the detail behind it, if you don't have some of the real anecdote and that kind of little bit of your war stories, that doesn't, it's pretty easily encountered and understood that you didn't really do it. So, look, honesty is the best policy. And we just talked about reputation. It's a small, small world.
Yes, it is.
Out there. And so if you start to get the reputation for being the kind of recruit that is not altogether honest, that gets into an organization and pretty quickly is found out and doesn't do well there, these kinds of things, right, travel.
Absolutely.
And so, in your interest to be as honest as possible. And for some people, unfortunately, that's also true with salary. That's not to say that you can't put a lot of explanation around it. And also be very clear on what it would take to get you to move, right? So you can say, here's where I am today. My salary was depressed for these reasons.
Yes.
Right? We had a
some people really are underpaid for whatever reasons, and they know their market
Absolutely.
value has exceeded that now. So that's a tricky, I think that's where people feel vulnerable
That's
and
right.
feel fearful and then decide maybe they need to fudge the truth a little bit, when actually, if, like you said, if they're honest and the recruiter can help them have a voice around that,
That's right.
then you can get the story clear. Because
That's
your
right.
goal is to also, if you know it's a good fit, to help the organization see they're worth every dime because of these reasons.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's, and that's part of, we walk that fine line of being an advocate and yet, and trying to find the right price point, right, that's going to come
Yes.
together between the organization and their new fabulous hire. But finding that balance. Absolutely is the ability to talk about market value, about what it would take to have somebody move, right? Particularly some people are very well entrenched in their organization, high potential. We talk about a passive candidate, right? They weren't looking. We happened upon them. And what's it going to take to pull that caliber of person out of their very good organization where they've got a lot of sponsorship, a great career path, potentially beyond salary options and equity and those types of things.
Yeah.
So thinking about that overall picture and then saying, okay, now here's what we need to do to pull them out. And that type of conversation. So it perfectly, and even if you're not working with a recruiter on your own, you can certainly say things like, here's where I am today, but knowing where others are in the market and what I think what I'll call kind of the transition cost, right, would be to move out of an organization. Here's what it would look like. So yes, today I'm at 120, but to even think about moving anywhere, I've got to be looking at least 130 in base.
Yeah.
Right, so you can have that kind of
And
conversation.
that's your time to come up in salary.
Right.
To have that negotiation.
Absolutely.
I remember when I started a particular job and I knew I was going to be taking a hit, although I wasn't working at the time because I had gotten downsized. So it was great training for going into the field of career transition, which
Absolutely.
is my passion
I
of
just did
helping
it.
so many people, going through transition, especially when they do get tapped and they find themselves no longer fully employed.
Right.
And I had a coach who was not so much of a recruiter herself, but more of a career coach in the city, Judith Gerberg, who was a lovely woman.
Great.
She still is. She's fabulous. And I said, I'm going to be making under until I start making commission.
Right.
And she said, ask them for a sign-on bonus. And I was like, can I do that?
Yeah.
She said, Heather, the worst they'll say is no.
Right.
So I asked and I got a $10,000 sign-on bonus.
That's great.
My colleague, who ended up joining shortly after me, same age, same profile, same everything,
Right.
did not ask. She did not get the extra
Absolutely.
$10,000. So that was like note to self.
Yeah.
Go
Ask.
for it, because it helped, and it really did bridge that gap until I started bringing in accounts and could at least
Absolutely.
help pad that base a little bit.
And I think, and that's a great point, because oftentimes organizations, because of budgets and the way financial planning goes, don't have as much flexibility in the compensation,
Yes.
right? But they have some one-off kinds of
There's
things
some
that
little
they can
things,
do. Right?
yes, to kind of
so those kind of
sweeten
perks,
the deal
whether it's
a little bit.
relocation, a sign-on bonus, some different pieces like that. So absolutely, always worth looking at, where are you coming from and what might make you whole, as we say, on the transition.
Yeah, enough to go over.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you, and I want your honest answer. Sure. So a soft spot in my heart is my industry of career transition.
Yeah.
Having been it, seen it in my family, myself, and helped hundreds and hundreds of people successfully move and just be welcomed into receiving help during a really hard time. So, there's a saying that it's easier to find a job when you have a job.
Right.
So if some people have been rock stars but did get cut, because it got so bad, as you know, that the fat was gone a long time ago.
Absolutely.
And then they got into the bone, the marrow, the muscle, to people that were really once real good rock stars and now find themselves looking for a new job. Do you take on those people as well? Do you find people open to still looking at a solid resume when someone is looking, because truly to no fault of their own, things changed, a Barclays bought a Lehman or whatnot, and there's a lot of good people, so in flux in that way. So will you talk to that? Because I always feel that it might be easier, but if you're a rock star, you will be found and you're going to land.
Right.
So
absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's more and more of an understanding that people are displaced not because of performance.
Especially the past 12 years.
Absolutely. Has been a roller coaster of that. So I do think that's understood. That said, it's looking at what have they done in the transition time. So there's the recently unemployed, and then there's unemployed for some duration.
Yes.
Right? And unemployed. So then that says, so what have you been doing? We're seeing a lot more people be open to a different style of employment, whether that's doing independent consulting, or you may have seen an HBR article about the rise of the super temp. This idea, right, that people at mid-level careers, even very senior executives, are kind of freelancing, right, if you will, right?
They're coming in and done saying, with the 70 to 80 hour work week, and
saying, I want to do it more on my terms.
Yeah.
Right. And so that can be part of the a great story for someone who's been displaced by their organization, is to be able to then say, I took it as an opportunity to do something that I never would have done without kind of the kick in the pants out the door, and say, how do I build something for myself, and really take the time to think about what my value is and the kind of organizations that could benefit from me, and finding that. And we're also finding, because organizations have downsized, they need extra help, right? They are doing special projects that, as you say, they don't have any bandwidth. There's no flexibility in the full-time staff. So they're needing to pull people in on more of this flex basis. And
do you also do temp to permanent versus unique situations, or are you focusing mainly on the permanent situation?
We're focused mainly on the permanent, but we also have kind of a little pool of people that we know are excellent, who are independent. And so tried and true, trusted by us, we know that they have quality work, and we know we can put them in nearly any situation, and they'll be able to do great work. And whether that's actually kind of more of a backfill or a staff augmentation kind of thing, or some project work and project management, some consulting, but really having that group of people that we know can really flex and move, but it also works for them, because they're saying, I don't want full-time employment. I want to be able to do something that's more flexible, and I can say, okay, I'm going to work for 4 months, and then I want to be out.
Or filling maternity leaves is very popular.
Absolutely,
absolutely.
I have a very dear friend who has found a great niche in filling in, and particularly in HR. There's a lot of women in HR in childbearing years, and so has really been doing amazing work, being able to fill that seat. And do more than just kind of keep the lights on. Right?
Anyone pregnant in your company?
Yeah,
I'm for hire.
I can do it. But there are a lot of needs. There are a lot of creative ways to staff and employ, and to think about how you can do that too.
Oh, that's good. I think that's a relief for people to hear too, because there are sometimes job search does take longer for the right match, and to look for it as an opportunity to try something and not just be on your iPad.
Right.
And just becoming really good at tennis is not going to be a conversation. When you decide, okay, it's time for me to be serious.
And certainly that's part of it, right? I mean, we're seeing a lot of people who are very burnt out, right, from the organization and from the whole experience. So, it's okay, right, to take some of that time to recharge,
regroup, and
and absolutely, and just kind of find your balance and your center and your confidence.
But unless you're going to Wimbledon in 2 years, don't just
don't just play tennis. But it's also, and to your point, also, it's networking. It's not sitting at your desk throwing out resumes on job boards.
Yes.
This is fine. Maybe you get a hit here and there.
The black hole. Yes.
But it's really a black hole. And there's so many resumes, right? So organizations, how are they ever going to sort through all of that and really find the talent.
So I just got the 2-minute warning, and I feel like there's still so
Oh,
much to
so
cover.
much to say.
So I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
can you share some tips on how to work with a recruiter?
Sure. Absolutely. So first and foremost, to find somebody that that you have rapport with, right? And I think that's really important, to be able to know that you have an honest dialogue and that you have somebody that you can connect with. It can become a long-lasting relationship and something that can really be fulfilling on many fronts for you. I think also to find somebody who has the specialty that you need. Right. So if you're in financial services and you're in finance in that space, find those people, right, that specialize in your area. They're well networked. They understand what to look for, what to ask for, and are going to be able to help you in a more meaningful, specific way than just getting kind of broader general advice. As in almost everything, the more you give, the more you get, right? So your ability to give a lot of yourself, meaning open yourself, right? Share as much as you can about yourself, and that helps the recruiter to be able to really represent you well too.
To honestly find the
Absolutely.
perfect fit. That sounds great. Now, where can people locate you?
On www.onpointhr.com.
And it's right here somewhere on the screen.
Great.
That's lovely.
Yeah, would
And-
love to meet you.
And so for people who are interested in any of the human resources,
Yes, human
roles
capital,
from-
work development, training and learning, that whole space.
oh great,
Yeah,
all that fun stuff
Yes.
that you know so well.
absolutely.
Well,
It's great fun.
thank you for being with me today. It is
Thank you,
always
Heather.
a pleasure, and I wish you much success in your exciting launch with the
Thank you.
And what's your partner's name again?
Josh Endler.
With Josh.
Yes, thank
That's
you.
great. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us for another great episode of the Career Corner. I hope you learned a lot today, and I wish you much career success until we meet again.